Evading Kevin and Telos, the group escapes from Shion's subconscious back to the normal world, but following this, Shion becomes emotionally unstable. During their absence, the Federation government was manipulated by Yuriev into assaulting Ormus in search of an artifact called Zarathustra. Abel's Ark, summoned by the events in Shion's subconscious, appears in the real world and begins causing planets to vanish as it pursues Zarathustra. Nephilim then asks Shion to free Abel from Yuriev's control, all while Yuriev leads the Federation fleet and Omega to capture the Durandal. Yuriev activates the Zohar emulators stored on the Durandal, intent on using them in combination with Omega and Abel's Ark to defeat Udu by rising to godhood. The group successfully infiltrates Abel's Ark, where Junior kills Yuriev with help from Albedo. Albedo then teleports Abel and the Zohar away. The conflict results in Albedo's consciousness merging with Junior, while Guinan dies along with Yuriev. The group follows Abel and the Zohar to the planet Mictum, the holy land of Ormus. There they kill a disillusioned Margulis, and Kanan sacrifices himself to destroy Voyager. Descending deeper into Mictum, Shion experiences visions of lost Jerusalem, seeing chaos under the name Yeshua, alongside a previous incarnation of herself, Cosmos' physical template Mary Magdalene, and Jesus prior to his death. In a final confrontation with Telos, they learn that Telos and Cosmos were both designed by Wilhelm and the Testaments to resurrect Mary Magdalene, with Cosmos holding her spirit and Telos being made from her body. The group is then confronted by Kevin, who asks Cosmos and Shion to join him. Shion, blinded by her love, decides to go with him until Alan convinces her otherwise, voicing his own long-held love. The group then confronts Wilhelm at Zarathustra's resting place. Wilhelm has trapped the universe in a time loop with the power of Zarathustra and the Zohar. The Gnosis are revealed to be spawned from the wills that reject Udu and escape from Udu's realm. Shion, whose necklace and will are key to activating Zarathustra, is tortured by Wilhelm in an attempt to make her wish for reoccurrence. Cosmos shatters the necklace, preventing the reoccurrence from ever happening. A redeemed Kevin then sacrifices himself to destroy Wilhelm, allowing the group to cripple Zarathustra. Abel, Nephilim, Cosmos, and Chaos choose to stay on Mictum, drawing all the Gnosis to them and using a dimensional shift to move that region of space to Lost Jerusalem. Their actions and the release of Chaos's anima energy will delay the universe's destruction, giving Shion time to find Lost Jerusalem and discover the key to changing humanity's will and saving the universe. During the escape, Jin sacrifices himself to save Shion. The resulting explosion of energy from the dimensional shift destroys the UMN, rendering faster-than-light travel impossible. Shion goes with Junior and Alan on the Elsa to find Lost Jerusalem, while Momo stays behind with Ziggy to reconstruct a new travel network with Scientia's help. In the mid- and post-credit scenes, a badly damaged Cosmos, floating through space, is contacted by Chaos, saying they will both awake again when they are needed. Cosmos is last seen drifting towards Lost Jerusalem. All right, we're going to try to wrap this up today, chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 8 is one of those chapters, like 7 was very, very story-heavy. There's a lot of cutscenes, a lot to get into, so we kind of had to devote a whole episode to it there. This one is lots of really long dungeons. So there's a lot of gameplay, not quite as much story and cutscenes in it, but still some really important stuff. So chapter 8 is basically where we get the resolution to the Dmitry Yuriev and our URTV characters' storylines. So this is Junior, Guinan, Albedo, and Dmitry Yuriev. So the Abel's Ark was summoned, right? And as we know from earlier in the game, Yuriev has Omega and Abel, and is now going after the Zohar emulators. He's basically trying to collect all the Zohars. And Yuriev's purpose in obtaining all of these god relics is to ascend to godhood himself. He was the first person, at least of this current age of mankind, sort of like galactic civilization, to make contact with Udu. And it was not good. He developed this terrible, terrible terror that he could not shake. And it basically drove him crazy. He has been infected by Udu in the same way that like Albedo has been accused of, right?
Yeah.
Albedo also went nuts. He was already kind of nuts, but like he went extra nuts. So in order to overcome this, he feels like he has to ascend himself to Godhead and like surpass Udu. And so his plan is to gather all of the Zohar emulators and the original Zohar and the Omega, and with it, he's going to open some gate, and he's going to use that power to ascend himself, to become a god himself. You know, there's a couple times. There's a couple of times. I think Sellers said this to Yuriev. He said something like, "Do you really intend to fight God?"
Yeah, that's right.
And then, do you seriously intend to fight God?
Dimitri intends to fight God.
And then Junior says, as they're like learning what his goal is and doing all this, does he actually think he can become a god? 2 times where the lines came across almost like fourth wall breaking. They're not actually, but like in the meta sense of like the state of JRPGs, which is the meme is they're all about fighting God, right? It's almost like the person asking the question is like, are we seriously doing a game about fighting God?
That's pretty funny. It's like a little self-awareness there.
Yes, it felt a little bit that way. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm almost certain it wasn't the intention, but that's like almost how it came across in like the incredulity of those characters in like
who would even imagine doing such a thing?
Are you fetching seriously going to fight God?
That's almost like it's almost like referencing Xenogears itself, you know?
It was so funny.
Yeah.
But one thing you have to remember with these Xeno games is that they are almost the ones that like basically started that whole trope of this genre to begin with.
Yeah.
Xenogears and maybe like kind of by association Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay.
And then you had like popular anime at the time like Evangelion.
Yeah.
That sort of like influenced the genre after it and the games that came after it, who all kind of started adopting similar ideas into them. So Xenosaga and Xenogears are the trendsetters as far as this goes. But it's funny now in 2024 going back to it, given the context or the landscape of the genre and how often they end up becoming about killing God. And so when you hear a line like that, it feels self-aware in that way.
Yeah,
even though it's probably not.
I didn't think that, but that's funny.
Yeah, it just came across as really funny to me. But so we got Yuriev, who almost immediately when the Abel's arc is summoned by Shion, goes to the Durandal and basically takes it over and is going in to steal the Zohar emulators, which are kept there.
And they're wondering, how did he get in so easily? They don't realize that it is Gaiman's body that he's using.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that whole scene is actually pretty brutal, especially when there's
with
blood
the
in
girls,
it and it's not uncensored.
Yeah.
Like there are shots of the soldiers coming in and you have crew members on the Durandal who are like scrambling backwards and they just like point blank shoot them and blood just splatters like all over the freaking floor.
Crazy.
And when you arrive there in the aftermath of this, it is an absolute like bloodbath on the docks and like all over this ship. It is just absolutely crazy the amount of blood that is everywhere. And so on my first playthrough of the game, I played the North American version and none of that was there. And on the second playthrough, I did the Japanese version. I was like, holy crap, this is actually really crazy.
Jeez.
So Yeah, we'll have to
I haven't even
show
seen
some
it. I haven't seen it
comparisons
yet.
to that because you
Oh,
played
that's
the
funny.
North American
Yeah,
version,
yeah.
right? So anyway, it's nuts. Really, it really changes how it feels. Like I would say it's not the same without it. Like it's not
Really?
nearly as heavy. It's not nearly as intense.
It felt heavy still, but I would agree that I would have something like that would have added a lot to that scene.
Oh yeah.
I could see it.
And it looks like Guinan is sort of walking into the bridge there, and then he walks up to Mary and thank you, like now you can rest, and like shoots her.
Yeah.
Right? Like it appears like in the gut, basically.
Yeah.
Just like puts a bullet into her. And then reveals, oh, this is Dmitry Yuriev using the body of Guinan. That is the only reason he was able to open the doors, whatever, get in. But he still doesn't have the codes he needs to release the Zohar emulators. And so he's basically threatening the girls there. I would really rather not make you suffer, if possible. I gotta praise the voice actor of Yuriev real quick. Dude's really, really good.
Yeah.
He's like super menacing, but he's got like this real calm, like confident demeanor about him. And his voice is just excellently suited for this. He just comes across as being super sinister, but he's that type of villain who he's the opposite of Albedo. Albedo's like the unhinged, totally crazy, like Joker end of the spectrum.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Yuriev is almost the opposite end of that spectrum. And I really, really like that difference between the two of them as it will come up in the end when Albedo shows up and faces Yuriev. But
that's good.
He's just great. I really, really, really like the voice actor. I think for him and Margulis, I would say, are the two where anytime those characters are involved, it's like the voice acting just gets elevated across the board in those scenes. Albedo is good too.
Albedo's
Crispin Freeman, I think, Albedo. He's also great. But those two, Yuriev and Margulis, I feel like anytime their presence is on screen, you just feel it through their voice. But anyway, so he threatens them and, they give him the codes or whatever. So you show up, the group shows up, and, Junior seeing this is, again, when you see the blood of the crew member on the ground in front of him, and he's looking at this, he's like really trying to stay composed, but is like not sure he can do it. And it was nice because then they have Ziggy say, hey, even I am about to come unglued here. Like you're not, he's not going to do his usual spiel of trying to like keep control of your emotions.
Yeah.
He's like, even I'm about to lose it now. Like I want revenge too. Right. I knew these people as well. Like this is not cool. Let's make sure he pays for this. So that was a nice moment between Junior and Ziggy. I really just love the designs. I think all the dungeons in this chapter, I loved them all. So this is technically a dungeon in like the game design sense, even though it's a ship, so it's not a dungeon. But there's like all these different levels to it. You go on like a little tram that kind of takes you to like the park area or like the residential area, the docks. You have like the bridge. You have like all these different areas you can go to and explore. And they're connected in ways that, I don't know, it's super engaging. These dungeons, I feel like, are perfect in terms of their length. They're long enough to feel like, you had time to figure them out. Especially the Merkaba. The Merkaba is like the best dungeon in the game as far as I'm concerned. Like it's such a complex construction, but you don't feel lost. Like you feel like you're able to orient yourself, figure out how the place works, figure out its puzzles, and like solve it. And you can do it in about 40 minutes to an hour. That's like the sweet spot of a dungeon's length to me. If you get games where it's like you're in this dungeon for like 3-4 hours, like, dude, I can't take this anymore, man.
Yeah.
Like
it grinds on you after a while.
Come on, like, please, let's move on. Right?
Yeah.
That sweet spot for me is that 45 minutes to about an hour length for a dungeon for you to like solve it, beat the boss, get out, move on with the game. And this game not only does that, it only kind of sticks to that sort of like pacing of dungeons, but the dungeons are just really, really elaborately and well designed, and they just look amazing. They
That's
look
cool.
amazing. The environments look incredible all the time.
Yeah,
they're
totally.
so impressive.
Yeah, and that's funny because there's always the temptation to just, if you make the dungeon longer, you can make the game longer.
Right?
And
You can pad it.
there's always that temptation from the developers, probably from pressure from above to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice that that didn't appear to be the case in this one.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about the battles too. Whereas in the first 2 games, I felt like battles were a little too long, right? Like there weren't as many fights. It's not random encounters. There are set sort of numbers of enemies on each map, and you can navigate around them in a lot of cases if you don't feel like fighting or whatever. But just the battles would take kind of a long time, and here they don't. Like there's still strategy to it, and there's still like certain ways of going about it, but you can get through normal encounters fairly quickly. And then the boss fights are the long fights. And I feel like that's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're getting tested a little bit at first when you get into there and kind of learn, okay, these are the types of enemies I'm encountering here. Here's kind of how they react. I should use this party instead and use these abilities in tandem. You figure it out early on, then you kind of blast your way through it, do the puzzles, get to the end, and then, okay, now I got to figure out how this boss works. I feel like this game does that perfectly to where it doesn't feel like you just walk into a new place and you're just hit with like these challenges that you've never seen anywhere else in the game. And you're like, how the heck am I supposed to do this? I'm getting destroyed by like every encounter I face.
Yeah.
I feel totally like not ready for this. And then you get to a boss and it's like, oh man, if I had known this was, I would have done this all. Just kill me already so I can like reset this. Like it's a hard thing in this kind of game to like design fights in such a way to where the player feels like they encounter it and they still need to like strategize and figure it out in the fight as it's taking place, but they can do it and succeed.
They can do it. Yeah.
That is not easy to do. And I feel like they did a really good job of this almost across the board in this. Wow. Like I every boss fight, maybe not every, if we go all the way back to the beginning, there's probably some pretty easy ones at the beginning, but I would say maybe starting around the time of Ep.III, or was it Ep.III I'm thinking of?
Yeah, she was at the end.
Ep.III in the last episode, so in chapter 7. Starting around that point onward, every boss has been like, oh, whoa, hold up. How am I going to deal with this? Right. Is the initial feeling, and then you, based on what you know and the skill set that you have of the characters, you can change certain characters in and out of battles. I love when games do that. Yeah. When you, in a battle, you can switch one character out for another.
Especially with the characters that have certain weaknesses and whatnot. And it's like, it's good to be able to do that during the battle instead of like what you were mentioning before. It's like, just kill me.
Kill me so I can reset my party.
With a different,
Yes.
And that's good. Oh shoot! I was going to say something.
You get that feeling like, oh, am I ready for this?
Right.
Then you like sit down, strategize, look at your stuff, implement a plan, and you win.
And then that feeling of accomplishment, is
it's great.
It's what games
are supposed to do.
The essence of a game.
Yeah, it's great. So from a gameplay perspective, I think this was my favorite chapter.
Nice.
Story perspective, I think 7 was really, really great. And some other chapters that were really, really good. Even some of the early chapters, like the whole like Lost Jerusalem or Fifth Jerusalem section, I thought was really good, where you go back and like get Cosmos as she's being scrapped and stuff. But from a gameplay perspective, these dungeons were phenomenal. I felt like the fights were challenging, but I could figure them out. Abel's Ark was another really, really good dungeon. So really, really impressed by this section as far as game design goes. So anyway, we're on the Durandal now, right? So
yeah, the Durandal.
They make their way down to Mary and Shelley. She's wounded but not dead. So yay. He left her alive. They gave him the data. And you have to kind of like go like activate certain doors in the res because they're all locked, so you can get in to where he's at and like pursue him or whatever. And so he's in that room. This goes all the way back to, I think, episode 1, in that room where they stored all of the emulators in that room.
Yeah.
Right? So he's in there and he's like releasing the locks on them and taking them. And he like shoots the controls so that he can like step in, but you can't like pursue him or whatever. But
he shoots the screen.
he has a conversation there. I think to boil down his conversations with Junior, it's a lot of Junior just kind of like, hey, stop doing this.
Right.
Stop right now and like do this instead. Like, give Guinan his body back. Enough of this.
Yeah.
As if like you're going to be able to reason or like convince him of anything at this point.
But this is more or less where he learns. Well, this is right where he learns what Guinan's purpose was from the beginning.
Right.
And not just Guinan. There were others like Citrine as well. And that their purpose is to kill him, right?
Yep.
And the irony of this is that Rubido ends up killing them. All of them. Yep. He kills Albedo, he kills Negretto, and he kills Citrine. And it's like, these people are supposed to kill you. I actually really felt for Rubido at this point here, for this battle and the way that it all ends up. Because we saw how hard it was for him to kill Albedo, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was really hard on him. Why does he keep having to kill the people he's close to? And this is a curse. He is cursed with this situation. He just cannot avoid it. And now he has to be the one to kill Guinan. Like, really, I have to do it? He has to go and now kill his other best friend that he had forever. Yeah. And once again, each time they're like, hey, we'll see you again, like, thanks for being brave. But the amount of stress and pressure that this puts on Rubido really, like, my heart went out to him.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's rough. And he was able to, and I think there was even a moment there where you're able to see him in his full grown, like what he would look like if he was older kind of thing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just really felt like Rubido has really gotten the short end of the stick here.
Yeah.
And he just hates that he has to be the one to do all this. His job was already hard. It is so much harder with all this extra stuff that he has to do.
Yeah, what's interesting about him, and I mean this comes up in his conversation with Citrine right before they fight. He's trying to appeal to her and be like, I don't want to kill any more of my comrades. Like, please don't make me fight you.
Right.
And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're breaking the link back then is like killed a whole bunch of us already. You betrayed us. You created this whole situation from the start. It's your fault.
That's because he was given the hardest job to do in the first place.
Yes.
And he just has the hardest job, and it only gets harder.
And in that contact, he saw a vision of what was really going to happen. And the truth is that Yuriev intended for them all to die anyways.
And so the URTV's dying was an acceptable loss
for Yuriev.
Yeah.
Right? So he saw the truth that Yuriev intended for all of them to die in this process anyway. He wasn't going to allow any of these things to live once he got his vessel to what do you call it? Be reborn again in Guinan's body or whatever. Right. Of course, Citrine doesn't know that, but that's what Junior saw. That's what Udu showed him in that brief moment of contact when they were doing their little seance circle thing where they're trying to contain the Udu waves. He's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Dad really intends to do that? Oh no, I'm not going along with that.
Right.
And so he broke the link because he was trying to resist what Yuriev's trap that was being laid out for them, but in doing so, directly drove his twin brother to absolute madness and killed a whole bunch of others who were there. And so for them, they're like, what you did, it's your freaking fault that this all happened in the first place. What are you talking about? You don't want to kill any more comrades. I don't want to hear that from you.
Right.
So anyway, you fight and kill her. I was a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed. That's not the right word. I just wish we had gotten a little bit more
I was disappointed
on Citrine.
Me too. We didn't get to know her much. And then I thought that somehow she would come out and, help us out or something. And instead,
maybe join up or
we
something.
just kill her and we're done with her. And that was okay.
Yeah, she kind of just ended up being a willing tool of Yuriev's the whole time.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe I don't know. Again, expect is not the right word, but maybe I thought they would do more with that character than that or something. I mean, there's nothing to complain about. There's so many freaking characters to pay off. Like, why throw another one on the heap?
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I liked Citrine. I liked like the potential for that character to go a little bit further with, and kind of just end up being a boss fight, and you don't learn much about her.
Nope.
Especially since, I mean, those are the 4 alchemical steps in the process, right? And so we've gotten a whole lot of development on Junior and Albedo and Negretto, and she's kind of the one that felt left out of that group.
Yeah, but at the same time, Citrine is the step in the alchemical process that is often left out.
Oh,
so there's actually
it fits.
It actually fits pretty well. A lot of times, Citrine is put in, or Citrinitas is what they call it, is put in parentheses. Because it's like most alchemical manuals actually just say black, white, red. And then some of them will say yellow, red, right? But most of them just say black, white, red. So the yellow almost feels like an optional kind of stage.
So so it goes from albedo,
black to white.
To yellow?
Black to white.
No, so I'm saying white to yellow to red.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So there's a step between the white and the red.
But the idea is that yellow is just white's natural path on getting to red, as you can imagine.
It's like
the color,
transition.
Yeah, just think of the color white as it slowly turns red. You'll get this like yellow phase before it becomes red. That's more or less where that was identified as a stage. But a lot of people were like, yeah, but that's just the in between.
More of a transitory thing, not its own.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe it fits.
That's the idea for Citrinitas.
Maybe it fits then. Yeah. So like they run in there. He tries to talk to him. Yuriv explains all the stuff I've basically said.
Yeah.
Udu, I'm going to ascend to godhood. And he takes off. So he's basically going to like ram the Durandal with the Zohar emulators like into Abel's Ark. It's actually really cool when you go into Abel's Ark as a dungeon, like you see it out there. It's like the Durandal's like split in half as like a backdrop in the distance. It looks so freaking
cool.
Sick. It looks amazing. Again, dungeon designs, art direction as a whole in this game is so many like tiers above the previous 2. It's almost unbelievable. It just looks so much better. It's crazy. But before you go there, you hit up the Merkaba first. I really liked this dungeon. Like I said earlier, is my favorite one of the whole game so far. But I especially loved how it's designed where they have sort of that central pillar, and then there's like a spark that's kind of spinning towards the top. And so as you get into these compartments, I thought it was so clever. Like you're standing in the center of that, and the elevator is to the top. And you're kind of stationary. But the second you take a step in any direction outside of that literal center, the centrifugal force of the spinning object starts pulling you towards the outside. And that force gets stronger the closer to the outside you get. So if you just stood still somewhere close to center, you'd just kind of be slowly being pulled. But as you run towards the edges, then stop, you're like being like really pulled. Like your character's like moving in that direction.
Yeah.
I thought that was such just a nice touch. Like again, just a sheen of polish on this product that is just absolutely absent in the previous 3 games, really.
Several,
that is just so impressive. It is so impressive.
Yeah. You would think that those would be the kinds of things that they would cut if the game was not on schedule or something. Like, get rid of all the extra little fancy bits.
Yeah. And then, so, you go through there, you eventually get into Abel's Ark. I'm trying to think of, help me guys, if we're skipping anything that you think we should talk about there. I didn't take many notes.
Yeah, me neither.
Because this is a lot of gameplay.
I'm next thing I have is Wilhelm becoming, showing himself as the leader of Ormus. That's because there are several scenes where he's talking to Margulis as Heinlein or whatever. Yes, Heinlein.
And continuing to confuse and push the limits of Margulis's faith, right?
Yeah.
Like, just don't worry about it. Move when I tell you to move. Stop. But they have Zarathustra, but they have the Zohar, but they have Omega.
Right.
We can't just let them take these relics. These are sacred.
Right.
You told me all this.
Yeah.
It's like, I told you to shut up and just do what I say. Get out of here. I don't need your help right now.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned last episode the voice acting difference between the two is really
it's
funny.
unbelievable.
Which is funny because Wilhelm, when he is doing his
I don't think it's the same
normal
actor.
voice, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like actually pretty good, but that voice for whatever reason is
For Heinlein.
it just doesn't sound
so
good.
goofy.
It doesn't sound professional. Yeah.
Be quiet and do as I say. And then you get Margulis like all hardcore, like, but Eminence, please explain. I don't understand. Be quiet. Do what I say. It's like so stark.
It sounds like a younger person.
Yeah. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But then later on, when Wilhelm actually steps out of the light and it's Wilhelm actually speaking, it's like, oh, there's a real voice actor talking to me now.
Yeah, exactly. I almost could feel like maybe it was him doing a different voice.
Trying to do a different voice?
Maybe.
If it was...
But Wilhelm
that was a bad
pretty good voice actor.
I mean, like, he doesn't know who Wilhelm is.
Right.
Just use your normal voice.
And for Kevin, which was a much bigger reveal in my opinion, they just kept Kevin's voice. So keep Wilhelm's voice.
Just keep Wilhelm's voice.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, we fight the Omnigear. I didn't know that was what it was.
Yeah. So there are kind of so many callbacks to Xenogears here towards the end of this game.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to like keep track of them all.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. And yeah, a lot of them are referenced in, say, like a gear design or, I talked about this last 2 episodes ago, the one you weren't here for, like Eisen and Mai Magus. Those are callbacks to the Balthazars.
Yes.
In Xenogears. Not real strong ones. Like I didn't like super quickly pick up on it or anything. But they kind of look like them and they kind of have similar names. But there are a lot of references like that in Xenosaga where it's just like very surface level, just like an Easter egg kind of thing. And there are others that are a little more direct, almost like a, hey, remember this? We might kind of be going this direction
like
in future,
like Abel
in future games, right? Abel's the best example of that.
Like, holy crap.
But anyway, there's a lot. But Abel's Arc, what I think probably the strongest one there is when you get to that big pillar. And in the center is where like Yuriev is at, but it's sort of protected by those 4 orbs that are orbiting around. Yeah. It's like legitimately straight out of the final boss of Xenogears. Remember that? That's like the last area in the final dungeon. And you have to, you can choose to fight those 4 optional enemies around,
that's right.
which weaken the final boss.
I'm remembering now.
Or you could choose not to, and the final boss is stronger. It's like literally like verbatim
And you're like
the
in outer
same
space
exact
or
thing.
in like the dark.
Yes,
I remember this.
And there's those 4 orbiting orbs around the outside.
Very cool.
So like, that's like a straight up, just like that's straight from Xenogears.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I really liked that. But yeah, you have to go fight those. Well, it's not just fighting a battle. There's basically little like pocket dungeons inside of those. And each of them was pretty different. I kind of like that. They really diversified. Again, game design and dungeon design in particular in this game is like absolutely excellent. But each one of them is quite different. And then you fight like a mech as like the final boss of that orb's little pocket.
Right.
And then you destroy the 3 Zohar emulators there, which starts to sort of shut down the shield that is protecting the area where Yuriev's at. And then you go into there and fight him.
Right.
As the final boss.
So one of those mini bosses is the Omnigear from Xenogears. That's what.
Is that what you're saying?
I mean, that's what I'm
saying.
saying.
There are 4 different ones, and they all have names that I was thinking we should probably look into. Maybe we should just fetch and do that.
Well, maybe we should.
Okay, we're not going to do that right now.
It says they all are. They're all the Omnigear.
We're not going to do that right now.
What, Giabara, that one?
Here's what I want people to do. Because there have been, obviously, this series has kind of a cult following fan base. It's like a very, very passionate, loyal, small group of people who just like absolutely love this. And I think that there are certain parts of the story that maybe some of these people were excited to hear our thoughts on. And so if maybe we glossed over something or didn't, what the truth is we didn't think it was noteworthy enough in our playthroughs to take a note on it.
Right.
But they feel strongly about it. What I want you guys to do instead of saying, hey, why did you skip this part? Man, like you're going too fast, you're rushing. Instead of making that accusation, what would really help me is if you could say, hey, I think this part's really important. And this is my reason for why I think that. I would love to hear your thoughts on this specific thing.
Right.
Please put that in the comments now.
Yeah.
Because we're
We are
getting
doing
through
one
the
more
end of the
episode.
game today.
Yeah.
We're going to do one more as a panel discussion, and I would love to go over some of those things.
Yeah.
So if there is something that you feel like, man, I really would have loved to have your guys' thoughts on this part, tell me what that is, and we'll talk about it next time, or at least we'll try to get to as many of those as we can with the panel. So please do that.
Perfect. Monster saying you see Billy's, Bart's, Satan's, and Rico's.
Oh, so
when
these are all the gears from Xenogears sort of repurposed.
That's fun.
As these gears. See, I didn't pay enough attention.
They're just Easter eggs.
I think the only one that I felt was one I could recognize right away as being that looks like the Xenogears one is Jin's original gear from the Miltian conflict in episode 2. That like kind of green one that he was in.
Yeah.
Not the Reuben ES that he flies now.
Yeah, yes.
Well, by the way, I thought that was interesting that Reuben is his. He's the oldest, eldest of the group.
That's right. Oh,
and so
very
his,
good.
His,
Reuben, the older
his
brother.
ES is Reuben, the oldest
Yeah,
son.
that's perfect.
So I thought that was kind of clever.
Very.
But anyway, his gear before getting the ES was very similar to Satan's.
Yeah.
But
I don't recognize the gears like you do. Though.
Me neither.
They
really,
all look pretty.
Really,
similar.
I'm not real into like mecha anime stuff.
Yeah.
The way that I think a lot of people who are into this series are. Well, Takahashi himself, who like really love mechs, and like mechs are like super awesome. Even like Transformers, I was never like all that into as a kid or anything like that, right? So the designs of the robots are not something I've ever paid much attention to personally. But maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe we should take a second look at that. And again, if you guys want us to react to something in particular, let us know what you want us to talk about. But anyway, this is about the story now. We're in here. We're facing off at last against Dmitry Yuriev. Maybe we should pull up some of the dialogue here. It's probably important to go over. So you finally made it. The powers I gave you must not amount to much, my dear son. What are you thinking about doing something like this? How many times do you have to encounter this man doing these things before you'll just accept this who he is and stop asking that question?
It seems like it seems like the person most closely related to the antagonist that we're confronting is the one least capable of seeing that antagonist's pattern or flaws.
Why are you doing this? He has spelled it out so many times now.
Right.
This dude...
Well, this is true with Shion and Kevin. It's true with Ziggy. And
Dimitri has kind of
Voyager.
expressed disappointment in Junior's intellect a number of times at this point. So maybe there's something to that.
Funny.
Stop asking me these stupid questions, you moron. Like, you know why. Your father is trying to take responsibility for the mistakes you children made. You should be grateful to me and stop complaining.
Well, okay, that's hilarious.
I really liked that line.
First off, your kids are like 200 years old. You're just like, oh, you foolish kid. Stop complaining. Go to bed. It's bedtime. But what's funny about that is that that's so backwards from the reality, which is that the children correct the mistakes of the fathers.
Yes.
But instead, he's like, I'm the father, and I'm correcting the mistakes of the children. Now, there is some element of that, of course, as you're raising children, you correct their mistakes. But when you're on this grand scale here, where it's like you're going to kill people, and your kids are adults, and they're like 200 years old, and you're still like, I'm correcting you. Know what time it is, man. Like, I think I heard, or I saw somebody on Patreon say that Dmitry Yuriev is something like 500 years old. Right?
Yeah,
like,
he's been
like, let go, bro. It's your time's over.
He's been using mental transfer to keep himself alive for a long time. He was back there in Pied Piper time, which was more than 100 years, or maybe exactly 100 years before this time.
So, he's clinging to power, harder than a baby boomer.
This is what this is what terror will do to a person. Right?
Absolutely.
The terror of death that
And
was
then
caused by
everything
his
becomes
contact
your
with
child
voodoo.
because you can't possibly be the one that needs. No one's going to replace you
What's
because you're the end all
Simpsons
be all.
mean? Am I the one out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Perfect.
That's basically sums up Dimitri right there.
Yeah, totally.
You're going to raise your hand against your own creator. I'm impressed you have the nerve. Shut up. Shut this monster, or shut up, or stop this monster now, or I'll kill you. Dimitri, are you sure? Your dear brother is inside me, you know. So, still got Guinan here. That's the dilemma. You can't kill me unless you're going to kill your brother.
Oh, dear.
Manipulation going on here. Guinan, can you hear me? He's like, you're wasting your time. You can't reach him, right? It doesn't matter. It's been a sacred sacrifice, so I may transcend Udu. Sorry. So Junior had accused him, like, do you know how much innocent blood you have spilled in this pursuit? Like, this is crazy. You've got to stop. It doesn't matter. It has all been a sacred sacrifice that I may transcend Udu, the acceptable losses concept once again. All the villains in the story believe in Nietzschean ideals and in the concept of acceptable
losses.
Well, these two things are evil. According to this game. What's the point, says Junior. I imagine you heard from Sellers. Oh, I guess I forgot that. Sellers was in the Merkaba.
And he got, yeah, that's right.
So Sellers kind of came up to them in the middle of being there and sort of explained some things about him and Yoki Mizrahi. He had kind of tried to live up to his legacy and was never able to.
And then, is it Mizrahi who shot him in the leg?
Yes.
And that's the reason why.
That's right.
He's in a wheelchair.
He's in a
all the
wheelchair
time.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Mizrahi had decided.
I'm calling it quits on the whole thing.
He decided on an acceptable loss as well. Yeah. We'll sacrifice this planet
to save
the universe.
Yes.
And he's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Like, stop this.
Yeah.
And so Sellers tried to stop him, and Mizrahi shot him in the legs and then went through with it.
You know, every good scientist carries a gun underneath that white coat.
So yeah, that's the reason why Sellers in the present day is always in a little floating wheelchair. He lost the use of his legs because of Mizrahi.
Poor Peter Sellers. Apparently, he's designed after Peter Sellers from How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Really?
What was it? Dr. Strangelove. Apparently, he's Peter Sellers. Well, I've seen the movie. Peter Sellers wears those glasses. And so this character is supposed to be kind of a reference to Peter Sellers.
Is interesting.
Who is one of the funniest actors.
Oh, he's hilarious.
His Pink Panther is so good.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, I got very familiar with those films because, as I said, I played the character in the high school play.
Yeah.
And so, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to base your performance on the original actors.
But when you're younger,
but I did anyway. So I kind of sort of just tried to mimic like his delivery of the lines and things as closely as I could. I guess that was kind of me and trying to be like faithful to the source material, so to speak, instead of making my own spin on it, which I've never been a big believer in. It's like if you're gonna tell an existing story, like it's that person's story you're telling, not yours. Yeah. Like be true to what they were trying to do.
Make your own story.
If you want to do your own spin,
tell your story.
Make your own story. That was my position on that. Okay, so I imagine you heard from Sellers. I am the first human being to make contact with Udu through the transfer experiment. I obtained this power then. But along with it, so the power they obtained, this is what Sellers revealed. So Yuriev was like a normal dude, right? But when he made contact with Udu, he got this mental transfer ability to like put his mind into someone else's body. So when they cloned him for all the URTVs, they also had this ability. So this is why Junior, and we already saw this in previous episodes with like Albedo and Guinan like mentally like connecting and taunting and talking to each other. They can sort of like, and it happens in this at the end of this scene. Guinan transfers himself into Albedo's body and forces Albedo out into Junior's body so that Albedo's spirit can live on inside of Junior and they can be together again, right, as like brothers. But in the same sense, that Guignan was pushed to the back of consciousness of Yuriev,
Yeah.
Albedo is sort of pushed into the back of Junior's consciousness
Right.
as the result of this. But this is the ability. This came from Yuriev's contact with Udu, the first contact he had with him. But along with it, I was implanted with an inescapable fear. I trembled before that fear. I struggled against it and ran. And eventually, I realized that this fear was in fact what shackles people to the human realm. And to overcome that fear requires the power of a god. That's a large leap because he basically says exactly what I've been saying about the fear of death on this channel for like freaking 3 years.
Yeah.
But then he goes, but in order to overcome it, I had to become God. Instead of, in order to overcome it, you accept that death is an inevitability and you become comfortable with that idea.
Right.
The fact that you're going to die.
Find beauty in the temporal.
Find peace in it.
Yeah.
And face that fear and accept it. No, that's not the answer. The answer is to overcome that fear requires the power of a god.
That's Gilgamesh. That's old.
I sought
mythology.
divine power and learned it would be granted if the relics of God were brought together as one. That's why I've come here to Mictum. Now I will transcend the fear of God. I will surpass God's existence. I will obtain Zarathustra that sleeps on Mictum and ascend to a higher plane to the realm of God. So I want to take note here that the goals of Yuriev and Wilhelm are both pretty much the same as far as what they're trying to get. Yeah. They are trying to obtain all the god relics, including the original Zohar, Zarathustra, and what's the third one? Why am I not thinking of it right now? I think it's the Omega mech. I think it's Omega.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's Omega in this form in which you fight Yuriev as the second phase of this boss.
That's right, yeah.
The Omega Res Novae or whatever. So that mech, Zarathustra, and the original Zohar.
And I believe Res Novae means like new version or something like that.
Yeah, something like that would make sense.
Something like
so it's like the Omega's ultimate form or something. So you need all those god relics, but Wilhelm wants it for a different reason than Yuriev does. Yuriev's reason is because he wants to become God.
Oh.
Wilhelm's reason...
Res Novae, that's it. Res means again, like reset. Res Novae means revolution.
Oh, gotcha.
Is what it means.
Gotcha. So yeah, we'll learn about why Wilhelm wants it next time. By the way, speaking on Wilhelm, there are some scenes we have seen kind of in the interim of these things with him talking to Kevin, the Red Testament, where it again, he just almost is totally unfazed by any action anyone is taking.
No matter what, even if it foils his plan or fails or whatever, he does not care.
It should be challenging to him. Because I think Kevin says, hey, Yuriev is like heading towards Abel's Ark and he's got Omega and he's got the Zohar emulators. This could be a problem. And Wilhelm's just basically like, no, it isn't.
Nothing is a problem.
This is amusing to me.
even up till the last moment, Wilhelm is just like, what? Like, this is... Well, he never loses his cool once.
No. And he says, see, the problem here, and I kind of liked this actually, this is actually a pretty cool sort of like another step of giving me some like believability to Wilhelm's ability to manipulate everything.
Yeah.
Because he's like, everything Yuriev is doing right now is based on the Y data we allowed him to have. But the Y data is incomplete.
Right.
It does not account for what I'm doing.
Right.
None of me is in the Y data. So it's fine. I have taken measures way before the Y data was even like recorded that was not accounted for in the Y data.
Right.
So everything he's doing, everything Yuriev is doing right now is based on what he knows through that Y data. But I'm not in the Y data. He doesn't know about me. He doesn't know what well, he knows about me, but he doesn't know what I've done or who I really am.
Right.
And so we're good. Don't worry about it.
That makes sense.
Let's just keep observing.
And he's
what he's waiting for is for the anima relics to finish resonating with all of the pilots of the ESs. Or if you go back to the scene where they are escaping from Labyrinthos when they went in specifically to steal the anima relics and put them into their ES units, there's a quick scene where they kind of stopped and the ES units kind of started glowing a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And Junior's like, what's going on? Are they shutting down again? And then Chaos was like, no, the anima relic is resonating with the pilot. He's like, oh, what, really? Like and he says basically something like, they're going to be more difficult to control now, so be careful of that. And then to himself, kind of offhandedly, he says, Wilhelm, what are you planning to do with this? The fact that the anima relics are now resonating with our party members. And so he mentions that at this point, the last phase of his plan is to wait for those anima relics to finish resonating with the pilots. He's just waiting for that to happen, and then he can make his final move. So he's just sitting back with his popcorn, watching them fight Yuriev, and like waiting for the rest of them to like resonate with their anima relics.
Right.
And then he'll be ready to like do his thing. So I believe that happens, if I'm not mistaken, like towards the end of this or maybe soon into chapter 9 or something. Junior accuses Dmitry Yuriev of being infected by Udu. Like all these waves. So when you made contact with them, you were already infected. He's like, infected? You don't mean me. Nonsense. This is power. This is the power to surpass God. Yes, and this is only a fraction of my true power. You don't really think that you alone can stop this power, do you? It ends here, Dad. And so you have your fight. Now, what I really loved about this is they do kind of tell the story with the gameplay a little bit here. I really like this. Because when the boss fight starts, you have Yuriev standing on the ground, and you have the Omega Res Novae behind him. And Abel is piloting that, by the way. That's like his whole job, right? Is to resonate with, and they've got the original Zohar in there. So it's like in its final form. And right off the bat, he goes, kill them now. And like nothing happens. And so it shows he's not really in control of this the way that he thinks he is. And so in the combat, he has to get a lot of hits in to build up his boost level, right? So like the way the combat works is you do damage, and the more damage you do, it builds up your boost level to one of 3 levels. You can actually get above 3 levels in certain other ways. There's certain things you can equip to get to a boost level 4. But once you reach like boost level 2, you have special attacks you can use that do like really cool animations and damage, kind of like a limit break or something.
Right.
Usually level 3 is kind of like the highest level, but the very highest level ones are level 4. Anyway, so in order for him to be able to command the Omega to attack you, he has to build his boost level up. And so you can use heat or other abilities in the fight to sort of like slow down that process so you can do as much damage as possible and take the least amount of damage possible from the Omega attacking you. Because Yuriev, when he fights you, is actually kind of weak.
Right.
But what's happening is he's building up to telling the Omega to kill you. But he does not have firm control over that. And I thought that was
cool.
a really cool
cool
detail to put right there into the battle. And they sort of explain that. So it's almost, like I said, almost the first thing that happens. You're like, all right, kill them now. And it's like, what? Or I think he goes through a whole spiel. Now you will understand the power of God. Kill them. And it just like sits there and does nothing. He's like, what's going on? Why aren't you listening to me?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really nice touch.
That's fun.
So that's the first phase of the boss fight. You beat that part, and then he goes into like the mech itself. It like kind of expands into a battle with the ES unit. So you're fighting against, it's a big mech battle. By the way, the mech battles are really cool. As far as like mech combat for this series, I would say this is my favorite. I think it's just really well done. A little on the easy side. Like I never really ever, not once, in a mech battle felt like I was going to lose.
No.
But they're still really awesome. Anyway, so you defeat that form and he comes out of it, but it's like, I've got the Zohar. This is unlimited, literally infinite power. We can just keep doing this forever.
Right.
And they're like, Junior, this is pointless. Like, he's just going to keep going. What can we do? And this is when Albedo shows up. And it's like, what was so funny to me was he says something, he addresses him as Goody Two-Shoes. And I was like, you're talking about, he's not talking to Yuriev, because Yuriev responds like, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to freaking Gagnon in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm talking to him. He's like, you can't reach him. It's impossible, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, oh, I think so. I think I am reaching him. And then Gagnon kind of comes out and it's like, I finally have control for a second. Kill me now. Do it now. And Junior's like, no, I can't. And Albedo's like, stop being such a freaking softy, man. He wants you to kill him.
Right.
Just do it. Do it right now before it's too late. So they debate that back and forth, but finally agree to do a link that contains the Udu waves, right? The link that they create. And I want to get into your notes on this because last time we had talked, or that we had sat down together, you had said that you feel like you understood why Junior stayed a child. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that instead of why he decided to stay a kid and not grow up.
So I believe I did talk about this. I can't remember in particular. One of them was that, so he remains a child to not have, so your shadow comes out when you get older, and it comes out in worse ways, right?
Yeah, because that's one thing that I felt like I haven't
especially
really
as a teenager.
I had not gotten like a complete resolution on was like, I get that, like they had the literal shadow of Junior being a monster in episode 2, right?
Yes.
And it's like they hinted at this fact that, well, he's this red dragon, and you kind of see the red dragon come out of him towards the end of the game.
Sometimes when he gets mad,
but I still felt like he hadn't properly sort of like faced his shadow yet.
Right.
And I don't think they really addressed that properly in this game
not really,
at all.
actually. That's a good point. No, they didn't. But at least the idea behind it is that his shadow is so dangerous that if he allows himself to go through adolescence and become a rebel who just wants to like screw around and just like mess up stuff, because that's what all teenage boys do, it would be catastrophic. It would destroy the entire universe. Like, he can't allow himself to become an adolescent. He can't allow himself to go through that period and to wrestle with his shadow and to slowly subdue it in a natural process. He needs to just shut it down completely and never go through any changes in his life that would bring that shadow out in any way, which includes just natural, becoming an adolescent person.
Really interesting take.
Yeah. So he has kept himself a child so that, and it's bad. There's a huge
for
negative
the sake
to that.
of others around him to protect them.
But because of that, he's never developed any of these more important attributes, or he's never developed like what you talk about with the Animus, with the Tarzan to Hermes kind of thing.
Sure.
It's like you just stay level 1 because that's what a kid is. But in order to become level 2, you have to go through this difficult stage where you have to confront your shadow. But confronting his shadow means confronting something capable of incredible destruction. And he almost has decided, I believe, it is better to just stay level 1 on everything than to let that shadow come out in any form.
Because it's interesting that in the scene, right, Guinan sort of briefly shows him kind of what he would look like as a man, or as he should be at this point, right?
Yeah.
I want to actually read the dialogue there. It was pretty good.
There was some good.
Give me 1 second to skip to this. Sorry, Negretto. I'm going to use your body. Keep suppressing the Udu waves. Here he goes. Stop hiding your feelings, Albedo. Why don't you come back here? Why did you come back here? Oh, yeah. So let's get to Albedo in a second. I don't want to keep getting off track. Rubido, that is your true form, he says to him as he's showing him as like a man, right?
Right.
You see, I was created to observe the two of you. The only reason why I existed was to kill you. I tried to abandon that duty, but that would have meant that I was denying my own existence. I was afraid of being separated from the two of you. Albedo knew from the beginning that I was nothing more than a danger to you. I know that I should have existed in this world. I should not have existed or never have existed in this world to begin with. So we do kind of remember that. I mean, that's kind of what Albedo calls him out for in episode 2. Remember that scene where they mentally link for a second? Like, I think Helmer asks Gagnon, like, can you please go spy on Albedo real quick? It's like, fine.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
he like goes there and that's exactly what Albedo says, like right away. You're watching over Junior, huh?
Right.
Huh? Yeah. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You sure you're not still the butcher or whatever? Right.
Yeah.
So Albedo recognized early on that Negretto's job was to kill Rubido, which is why Albedo never really liked Negretto. And he even says here, like, oh, this guy pissed me off to the very end. Like, he just has this real antagonistic relationship, Albedo does, with Negretto. And it's because, well, he's going to kill my twin brother. That's like his whole purpose for existing. Of course, Junior didn't know that and was friends with him. But Gagnon tried to deny that that's what he was doing. But like his whole like instinct, right? Like we're talking about the denying your instincts or your natural impulses.
Yep.
His natural impulse is to keep an eye on him, not because he's protecting him, but that there's going to come a time where I'm going to need to kill you before you do something too crazy.
Oh, basically, in every case, the ascetic life is considered good in in these games, which is obviously, I think it's like, I don't know, there's problems with it, but I think it's fine. But it's just funny that it's anti-Nietzschean.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny.
So anyways, that's what he's referencing there when he says that.
Yeah.
And then he goes on, that's not true. We were friends. My duty was to keep a watch over you. No, I want it to be over. Oh, sorry. My duty to watch over you is over. No, I want it to be over. I'm not saying goodbye. And he turns into a child again for this part of the line.
That's right.
I'm not saying goodbye. Let's play together again sometime. Until then, take care, Rubido. Albedo. Negretto, no. But yeah, he doesn't do what Albedo suggested because Albedo wanted to kind of stay as Albedo and just wanted Negretto to die and go away and like kill Yuriev in the process. He was like, nope, I'm going to shift your consciousness over to his body. I'm going to take this one and kill you so that you can stop being a testament. And so it kind of plays off of the banter and the almost like rival-like nature of their sibling relationship that they had together. So it was like Albedo felt like he had the leverage here in the situation and was trying to tell Negretto what to do. And then to the very end, he was like, nah, I don't really take orders from you, so I'm just going to do this instead. And so he just pushes Albedo's consciousness to rest and just be quiet for a bit in the back of Rubido's mind. And he says something like, I'm real tired. I'm going to go sleep for a while.
Right.
He's like, it's all good. Maybe someday we can like get back together and play again.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds okay. Peace. So it was nice.
It was good.
Tied a little bow on that whole storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was really anything there aside from Citrine. I brought up a little earlier where I was thinking, I wish this or that had been explained more or expanded on or whatever. It was good. It was good. This finishes off Dmitry Yuriev as a threat, and now we fully pivot to Wilhelm.
I feel like we could have used Yuriev, to let him kind of confront Wilhelm and see what happens. But
I would have liked to have seen a showdown between Wilhelm and Yuriev, but at the same time,
but Wilhelm is so many levels ahead of.
And it's that line I mentioned.
Yeah,
everything he's planning is based on what's in the Y data.
Right.
I'm not in the Y data.
Right. He doesn't know what he's getting into.
He wouldn't have been able to do anything to him anyways.
Yeah, nothing at all.
The only thing that could possibly surprise Wilhelm apparently is the fact that people don't want eternal recurrence.
What? What?
Why do you like? This is getting a little bit of ahead, I guess, but I found it so funny. Like as like Kevin and like people are resisting him in the end and like literally cutting his arm off. He's just sitting there like lightly confused. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. I'm trying to help you. He's like the Gandalf
I don't
moment.
understand. This is perplexing.
I'm mildly alarmed here.
I'm mildly alarmed here.
Oh, man.
All right, so that kind of leads us here into
Yes.
chapter 9.
Speaking of Wilhelm here, yeah. This chapter, I believe this is how it starts off, right? Is what's his name? Margulis. Margulis in the church, and he's
is where he gets his reveal about the true
And
origin of
Heinlein,
Ormus, and Wilhelm is really there.
all of this.
This is a really interesting scene. It seems almost like it's just kind of a short thing, almost a throwaway thing. I almost got the sense by the end of this that Wilhelm might have been recruiting Margulis to become a testament or something. It's like he was testing his will to power.
Sure.
And had sort of like judged him as worthy
But
by the end of it.
Margulis had given himself over so much to his faith that he wasn't capable of the will to power.
Nope.
Which is so funny because the game criticizes both.
Yeah.
It's like, don't give your will to something outside of you. Also, don't use the will for yourself. Well, what do I do? I don't know. There's probably another choice, which I think the way the game kind of ends is like, whoa, give your will to everybody, like to all of humanity or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, Margulis has placed his will in, or he has denied his will in favor of faith in something else, right?
Until this moment.
Until,
which is what I thought was interesting.
but even still,
because that's when Wilhelm decides to reveal himself to him, is when he
Right.
finally is like, I cannot just have faith in you anymore.
Yeah.
You've pushed me too far.
Yes. But he can't go back though. Even when he gets his will back, right, and then is like, oh, I'm going to do what I want. I just really kind of want revenge and then I'll die. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, your will, he didn't have the will to power.
That's
but once
true.
again, the will to power is a bad thing.
That's true. Like, it's almost like Wilhelm saw a seed.
Yeah.
Where it's like, maybe you have the will to power.
Right.
Because you stopped refusing to question Heinlein there. You finally said, like, I've had enough.
Right.
I demand to know
So he
what
showed
you're doing.
some independence
He
there,
showed
right?
some. He showed a small acorn there of will to power.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Wilhelm gives him a choice.
Right.
You can choose what to do here. Either way, you've proven yourself to be worthy of being a major player on the final stage. But will you turn around and walk away from this? Will you continue with us? Because like the two remaining testaments kind of come up, because now we've got Albedo is gone and Virgil is gone.
Yeah.
So it's just Voyager and Kevin left. And I almost thought where this was going at the time is Margulis going to become like the final testament or something like that? They didn't end up going with that, which I think actually is better. I was piqued for a moment in that possibility, but like, no, he has for too long. We talked about neural pathways last time. He has for way too long ingrained himself. He's just too entrenched in this. He had devoted his entire freaking life to it, and so. Also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the devastation of like truly fully believing in a certain reality or a certain what do I want to call this? I don't want to call it mythology. It is in this game, but like I'm talking about people's faith.
Just a worldview
being shaken, or worldview being turned upside down in front of you, and like just how difficult a thing that is to deal with.
Right.
I'm not even really necessarily speaking from experience on this, although I have had that happen. But since I have gone through sort of like addressing like, okay, what do I really think now that I'm re-examining the things I believed growing up, and where is this going to put me, and what am I going to choose to believe in now? I went through that process fairly unscathed. I was very fortunate because I was supported by my family. A lot of people don't have that that privilege. they get their relationships with their family become strained, or maybe they lose them, or whatever. So what in that time, I have ended up listening to a lot of other people's stories about this and just how like totally destroyed they were. Almost to the same extent of what I was, but after the relationship with my first girlfriend ended that we talked about in the last episode, like that pit that I went into due to that incident is like what these people experienced due to, oh no, this thing I believed was real this whole time isn't real. I don't know what to do. I just like do not know what to do now. Margulis is the prime person for this type of trauma to come out of an experience like this.
Right.
So you have devoted yourself as an inquisitor of the church, have killed countless people in the pursuit of the church's goals, and in the pursuit of this ideal for lost Jerusalem and all this stuff. And then your literal prophet steps out of the light. And I can imagine how elated you might feel like initially in that. It's like, oh my goodness, the prophet stepped out of the light. He revealed himself to me.
Right.
Like it's happening, like it's coming true. This is crazy. And then he's like, so I'm the CEO
of Vector.
of Vector. And I made Ormus 6,000 years ago, and like everything you believe is a freaking lie that I set up for eternal recurrence. And, you seem like you might have the will to power. What do you think about that? I'll let you choose. And he kind of just like the only thing he has left at that point is his rivalry with Jin Izuki.
Right.
He's just like, I gotta go settle everything with Izuki. It's all I have left.
Once again, this is letting your heart guide you, like letting your passions direct you to to a large degree, where it's just like, well, this is what I really want to do now. Like now that I'm free of, whatever that was, I can pursue my passion, which is freaking killing that jerk idiot who challenged me once 15 years ago, and I'm going to go kill that guy. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like it's so believable.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Like, where else can that character go?
And even with the way he explains it too. And even also the girl, Pellegrini, the way that they kind of talk about it is like, look, I have nothing else, but I'm here to kill you. But also, I kind of don't even really want to do that anymore either.
It's almost like I'm going to like put my all into this fight.
Right.
Every last ounce of strength. But like secretly, I hope you freaking kill me.
Yes, which we've seen in other games.
If I kill you, then I truly have nothing left.
Right. That's true.
So like,
I can't actually achieve the goal.
In my last struggle, that I can go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
At least it will be fighting a worthy opponent such as you, Izuki, because he finally does admit he's a worthy opponent in that scene. I kind of liked that. Like in the past, he had always been like, Izuki,
you're weak.
Like, you're weak.
You're peanuts. You're nothing, dude.
Because they had trained under the same master, I think, the same sword master and everything. Remember, because that's what Jin says in episode 2. He's like, something about the sword is meant to carve the heart or something like that, not to kill people.
It should be turned inwards, not outwards.
Like you didn't learn this lesson from our master or whatever, right? You're not truly embodying the sensei's teachings.
Except at the end of the fight, he does just that. He turns his own sword inwards, right?
It's kind of a beautiful,
interesting
payoff to that whole setup back from episode 2.
Right, yeah.
I thought it was really great. So yeah, that kind of like wraps up Margulis. I didn't really have much
it does.
more on him.
I just want to talk about Ormus just a little bit.
Oh, sure.
The word Ormus there's a region that was in ancient times called Ormus. It's like Iran and maybe a little bit of like Dubai, something like that, or, part of the toenail of the boot of the Saudi Arabian, peninsula, and then, the Arabian Peninsula, and then part of the old Persian Empire in Iran. And what's really interesting about the name Ormus is that it survives today in the word Hormuz, Hormuz, which is that same area. You've heard of the Strait of Hormuz. It is where most of the oil, that and the Red Sea, I guess, but most of the world's oil is shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. That's Ormus. That's what the word means.
Gotcha.
But when you look into the etymology of the word Hormuz, you actually get Ahura Mazda. That's what that word means. That word is a shortened version of what was originally the name of the Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda. And that is what that whole region is named after. And this is so interesting because they're not shying away from the fact that Ormus is supposed to be some type of Christianity. But like Ahura Mazda is its name. It is named after literally Ahura Mazda, which connects it to Thus Spake Zarathustra in a very interesting way, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like it was this thing, and then but I would almost say it's not, and this is my personal interpretation, but it's not the old Zarathustra that Ormus is like referring to. It is the Nietzschean Zarathustra, right? It's like, oh, this is the new version of Ahura Mazda. I could be reading too much into that. But it's interesting that they call themselves that. Now, the only real relationship that Ormus would have with Christianity is just the geographical sort of proximity. It's maybe 1,000 miles away. Right. So that's interesting. But other than that, it's totally a reference to the old Persian, just like Thus Spake Zarathustra is. Right. So, super
Very
fun.
interesting
Super
stuff.
fun.
I want to jump back to a conversation that Shion had with Nephilim towards the beginning of this chapter. Because Shion is talking with Cosmos here for a bit. This is right after the scene with Jin, which is the scene we left off on in our last episode, where he called himself pathetic, right?
Oh, yeah.
So right after that, Cosmos approaches Shion and, tries to console her. Are you all right? Cosmos, is what Kevin said true? Are you going to kill me? And Cosmos tries to, comfort her in this. There is no connection between my current system and your life functions. Nevertheless, given that those words from are from Kevin Winnicott, the system designer, we cannot be certain if they should be ignored. At the present time, I am restricted from taking actions that would jeopardize your life. Why do you protect me, Cosmos? Protecting Vector employees is registered in my program as a matter of high priority.
Yeah, come on. I'm not buying it. All Vector employees? No. Shion's special.
That's not it. You try to protect me specifically. I didn't program any priority like that. Shion, protecting you is registered as my highest priority. Is Kevin the one who programmed that? I don't know. I can determine that it is a direct interrupt from my core module and independent of my program control. Your core? Are you saying your heart wants to protect me?
Yeah. I have developed human emotions, yes.
My heart? I am unable to determine that. I guess you can't know that. I don't know what I should do. It's not that I want to give Jin a hard time, and it's not that I don't trust my friends. I know that you and Jin and everyone on the Elsa are worried about me, but isn't everyone really thinking that I'm a dangerous burden? I'm the one who led our universe to destruction. If I died, the Gnosis might disappear. Isn't that what everyone's thinking or wishing would happen? I'm afraid. I'm so scared. No one's going to save me. If everyone abandons me, will you always stay with me? Cosmos doesn't say anything. I don't want to be alone, Cosmos. Help me, Kevin. And this is when Nephilim appears. Shion, don't reject everything. If you stay like this, you'll wind up alone. What do you want? Are you here to say a bunch of cryptic things and confuse me?
Just a bunch of vague, nothings that I don't understand. I love that.
I laughed so hard.
I was very happy for that one.
I loved that. That's exactly what I would have said. You're always like that. You just appear in front of me, say whatever you feel like, and then just watch without actually doing anything.
So Shion has no idea what's going on.
It's true that he needs you. This is talking about Kevin. But he doesn't necessarily seek the same thing that you seek from him. That salvation he brings might not make you happy. Why don't you just put it in more plain words? This is kind of what she's complaining about. He's manipulating you.
Right.
Maybe she's trying to be softer about it because that's the kind of thing Shion would reject.
Exactly. If she was told right up front, then she would say, no, he's not. Get away from me. Stop talking. Everyone's wrong.
Yeah. Even if that's true, I still want to see him. I want to talk to him. If you go to him, You will have to choose. The choice you have to make will be difficult and painful for you. Do you still wish to? Yes, I still do. I need Kevin just like he needs me. What Kevin wants is Abel, the Zohar, and you and Cosmos. Abel is currently being used as part of the Omega system to realize Dmitry Yuryev's ambition. Set Abel free from his curse. If you do, Kevin will appear before you once again. So Shion gets on board to go with the party and stop Yuriev because she's trying to free Abel to get Kevin to come back, not because she's actually trying to help anybody. But we've all gone over what's driving her at this point.
Yes, and how it makes sense and is a common way that people are and act.
But particularly when you've been through the kind of things that Shion has been through at this point, and there's one person in your entire life who you've ever felt made you happy and giving you those feelings that, again, I feel like almost in the media they depict as what love is.
Oh yeah.
And
the media sucks at depicting love.
One of the greatest lessons I've ever learned, and the hardest lessons I've ever learned, is that is not at all what love looks like.
Yeah.
In those romantic comedies and Disney movies and stuff, like that's not what love is literally at all.
Try to explain that to your 17-year-old self, though.
I know. That's the hard part.
It's something that can only be known through the experience of it, which is not scientific. You would ask for, you'd be like, show me the studies. And you'd be like, dude, bro, just like, listen, you can't know that. Well,
yeah. All right. Let me skip ahead. Oh, we're back in chapter 8 again. Let me go back to chapter 9.
No, there's one thing I had that I always wondered why the Song of Nephilim is called Song of Nephilim. Do we know why?
Right.
We know why Nephilim is, well, we sort of know who she is.
So we know who the person
Song of Nephilim.
I feel like this was explained in
why it's named after her? Or why she's named after it?
I have this feeling that this was explained in Missing Year, but I'm not, like, my brain's not recalling it for some reason.
One thing, just an idea I have, is that Nephilim is the sign of the end. It's a sign of destruction in general, that in the book of Genesis, the Nephilim are the precursors to the flood.
That's true.
Right? So when Nephilim show up, the flood
that means bad stuff's
coming.
About to
Things
happen.
are about to get destroyed. That's, I just had that note.
Yeah, so this is all tied to Lemageton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is what...
Wilhelm says those are
what
the
fetch was
words.
The dude's name? Nephilim's father from Missing Year.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
He was the one who, like... he was the first set of scientists back on Lost Jerusalem who, like... programmed these words into the system that they were going to use to, like, call to the higher number domain or whatever.
Yeah.
And what led to the disaster that made Lost Jerusalem get disappeared from existence or whatever. Right. And so Nephilim, the girl, his daughter, was all a part of that. And so, yeah, that would make sense to me, being that they think this is, well, any time that these people seem to think that they've got some level of control or handle on being able to use the God relics to call to the higher number domain, ascend to a higher dimension, obtain ultimate power, whatever it is, then they are sorely mistaken, they find out. And so her being named Nephilim, I would think, would be kind of a similar sort of omen to the ultimate demise of what will happen if you mess with this stuff.
So a flood has two symbolisms. Monster says, it's Grimoire Verum, by the way.
Grimoire Verum, that was his name. Grimoire
which means
Verum.
The true book. Anyways.
That's right.
He says that Nephilim ends up being a sign of rebirth at the very end, though, which is a flood is also that. A flood is, like, for instance, you have baptism, right, which is the immersion in water, and then the rebirth out from that. So Nephilim can be the destruction and rebirth actually they go hand in hand. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Okay. So what were we?
This one. So then Wilhelm proceeds to tell Margulis that Lemegeton, what Lemegeton is the words of Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that those words are a failsafe installed by God that can cause the universe to dissipate, right? And that's what Lemegeton is. So that was interesting. So they're bringing Jesus into it, which I thought
and
was
this
wonderful.
all relates to chaos. I guess we can say this now. We're not necessarily going through this sequentially. We're kind of jumping around chapter 9, but like we need to build up to where Shion makes her choice, and we do that whole breakdown.
Yes,
but that
and
comes
we
after,
don't have a ton of time
that
to do
comes
that.
after the revelation of Mary Magdalene and chaos, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I brought this up in the last episode, not the last one that was released, the last one I sat down to do that I did by myself.
Okay, though.
I don't know if you saw that one or not.
I did, yeah.
But there was a commenter who brought up the fact that cosmos, the word cosmos,
means
outside,
order.
Yes.
Yeah.
Order and chaos, the two yin-yang.
And the reason why
thing.
cosmos has reference to the universe is because cosmos is typically used as referencing the order of the universe, right? But the word itself would actually mean order, yeah.
Right. So, chaos, the character, and Mary Magdalene kind of served as they were followers of Jesus Christ on Lost Jerusalem back in the day. And I think it's even insinuated that a lot of the miracles Jesus performed were actually like through chaos's power.
Oh, really?
This isn't like outright stated, but when you consider the fact that the anima relics are sort of like the divided powers of chaos.
Of chaos himself, yeah.
Yes, right? So chaos's power was divided into the anima relics.
Right, yeah.
Or they call the anima relics the anima vessels. That's what they call them in this game. I was thinking Xenogears terminology. So they need to gather those together again, and they need Mary Magdalene. So they need chaos's power and the anima relics. This is why, what's his name? Wilhelm is trying to like get those to resonate and activate again and like come back to full power. Mary Magdalene and chaos were sort of two people close to the Messiah back in the day. And so Cosmos, I hope I'm summarizing this accurately, correct me if I'm wrong, is designed to look just like her. Again, I use the term very loosely, look just like, because they also said this about Momo and Sakura, and they don't really look that much alike to me.
Yeah, they didn't look a ton alike, but they were like, when Shion finds Mary Magdalene, Shion is like, it looks just like Cosmos,
Looks like, just
which
like
I
Cosmos.
wouldn't have said, but that's fine.
Now, there is something
It's
to be
mostly
said.
the hair color, I don't know.
Yes, I mean, there is something to be said about that. Hair and eye color can really do a lot to change the appearance of a person, even if the model's exactly the same. So like all of the URTV models, Gagnon, Dmitry Yuriev, Albedo, it's the same face. It's literally the same model, but they just have different eye colors. Albedo has white hair and purple eyes. Gagnon has blue eyes and black hair.
Yeah.
Yuriev has blonde hair and I think blue eyes or something like that. And then you got like Rubido in the child form with the red hair.
Right.
So they look different, but they're literally the same exact
It's the same
model.
yeah.
And that's probably true of Momo and Sakura as well. At least in episode 2. I don't think we see Sakura at all in episode 3. But anyway, so it's possible they're using the same face for Mary Magdalene and Cosmos. Of course, there's also the fact that Cosmos had looked totally different across all 3 games. But the point is, she's supposed to look exactly like Mary Magdalene.
That's pretty funny. That's good.
So Cosmos was sort of designed to be this vessel that would like the consciousness of Mary would sort of be like reborn into her, all at this final stage in which all these things would be gathered at the right place by Wilhelm, and he would reset the universe. He's going to use all the God relics, Zarathustra, Omega, the Zohar, the Anima relics, which is Chaos's power, Mary Magdalene in the form of Cosmos in her true awakening that he's been talking about this whole freaking series. And in fact, I think Shion, we also learn that Shion is a reincarnated like handmaiden or servant to the original Mary Magdalene. And then Telos was supposed to be the body. I think I said cosmos a second ago. Telos is supposed to be the body in which Mary Magdalene will reincarnate. But what ends up happening is as you come into your next conflict with Telos, Cosmos does the opposite.
Yeah, Cosmos wins. Telos was supposed to win.
Yeah.
And this was Kevin's whole plan. And this is really funny. Another thing, what you were talking about, where Wilhelm is just like, oh, well. Basically, after Wilhelm and Kevin are kind of talking after the fight, and it's like, oh, Cosmos assumed the identity of Mary Magdalene, not Telos like you planned, huh, Kevin? Your plan didn't work, did it? And Kevin's like, oh, shoot, dang, it didn't work. But like Wilhelm doesn't care that much. He doesn't seem to care at all. And Kevin's like, no, it might still work. It should still work. I made Cosmos, so I think it'll still work. And Wilhelm's just like, your plan's about to break.
That's right.
But here's the thing.
That's right. Because Cosmos was supposed to then give her will over to Wilhelm in the end, and she doesn't.
And she doesn't because of, it's Cosmos.
Because of Cosmos instead of Telos.
Not Telos.
And that's what goes wrong in the plan.
Yeah.
That's right.
But Wilhelm doesn't care that much. It's really funny because Wilhelm is just like, Kevin, your plan failed. And Kevin's like, anyways, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Yeah. So anyway, when I said, I think in the last episode that like the plot of this game at times kind of just took that one step past like the line of where it gets a little too goofy for me.
Can I,
do you have a similar feeling? Okay,
Let me read my note here.
Go for it.
I had my moment of what the heck am I watching, just like Mike did. But for me, it's Mary Magdalene in a bikini trying to kill a robot clone of her with her will in it, who opens like a boob cannon to save Shion, who is literally standing there with her pants open, completely unbuttoned and unzipped, crying because she just wants to live alone with her ex-boyfriend, who is evil. Okay, so that's what I wrote. First off, I have not commented on Shion's clothing, not least the fact that her zipper's wide open and she has suspenders just pulling her pants open. Because I'm like, well, whatever, it's not that big a deal. But it just added to the scene and it got too much for me. This whole scene of freaking Mary Magdalene fighting her evil robot clone, or her good robot clone, as it turns out. It doesn't even matter. Like, this is ridiculous. What am I watching? This is unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And I started to kind of, maybe this game isn't for me. I really started thinking that around this time. Where I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but this is getting a little too much. I do say that the end of the game wraps it up very nicely.
I do really like the
very
ending.
well.
The ending was great.
I started to feel it going off the rails here. and perhaps this had been happening the whole time. It finally just went too far for me, you know?
Yeah. So I want to like extend an olive branch here a little bit, because I think that there are going to be like major fans of this game who might not love that sentiment, but I want you to understand where we're coming from here a little bit. So we grew up like deeply religious people, and so there's probably a certain level of, again, a neural pathway that has been very finely
it's like you're
connected.
making fun of
it's like it's
Mary Magdalene.
When you put these sacred figures in situations like this, it's gonna feel so out of place that it's just going to rip you right out of the scene and make you think or feel something like that.
That's what starts it. And then you start noticing everything else that's
the
weird.
Stuff around it.
If it wasn't Mary Magdalene, I might have been able to handle it.
I want to at least acknowledge that bias certainly has something to do with the way we were going to receive this kind of thing. I remember back in episode 2, as soon as they called Chaos Yeshua, I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to literally make him Jesus Christ?
But hold on.
They didn't,
but they did.
But they kind of
did. They kind of did.
Because it was through Chaos's power that Jesus Christ performed his miracles.
Yeah.
So
they kind of did.
There was just a certain part of me, even though I'm not religious anymore, that as soon as I kind of saw where they were going with that, it was just, I wasn't able to, based on my upbringing, like accept those religious sacred figures into this wacky anime mecha world,
right,
and be able to take it at face value seriously in any way. It was not going to happen no matter what.
Well, I cannot agree more. Yeah.
So understand that that's
also,
not exactly our fault.
No,
but
but at the same time, without a religious education in Christianity, half this game is incomprehensible.
That's true.
Right? Like,
that's true.
Like it's partly the reason why we're even covering this game and why we even understand half of its references.
That's true.
Is because of that upbringing. So it's funny to utilize that in some ways, but then to really undercut it, which I think is what they're trying to do.
Yes.
Takahashi's trying to do.
And
use it and undercut it at certain points.
I like the sentiment of that. So I like the idea, because that's what Xenogears did for a lot of people, including some of our guests from the Xenogears series, right?
Yeah.
The
crucifixion scene and
yeah, that was silly too. I mean, that was really freaking weird. But the retrograde amnesia guys.
Oh yeah,
remember
that's right.
they talked about how they went to like Catholic school.
Yeah, that's right. They were,
and so that game gave them a perspective or this sort of like undercutting of those traditions in a way that made you reflect, think on it, like reconsider some things in a way that didn't overstep that line I'm talking about into a land of silliness that I'm not sure that I can follow this game anymore.
Right.
So I feel like Xenogears accomplished that, but I say that being very fully aware that Choo-Choo being crucified was exactly this kind of thing too.
Yeah.
Right? Like Choo-Choo being crucified is exactly the same as what we're talking about here. It's like this is way too silly for me to take seriously. So I'm not trying to be like a Xenogears elitist in this and be like, no, Xenosaga can't.
Xenogears never did that, yeah.
Yes, in the end, I think that I appreciate Xenogears more for all of these same ideas and things it explores and the way it chooses to go about it than Xenosaga did in the end. But I'm not trying to say, well, Xenogears didn't do it. They both did it. So I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that this maybe went like a little bit of an extra step further in certain areas or in certain regards.
Absolutely.
And that is only going to be a line drawn in the sand where that's too far for people with the religious background that we had, and not just with the background, but who I think were really, really seriously devoted to it. And there's a certain orthodox mentality that was sort of worked into that, into this avoidance of blasphemy.
Right.
That is just going to make something like that feel so like weird and off the rails and uncomfortable, even though I'm not that religious orthodox anymore. It still just felt so strange.
Totally.
But I also want to keep in mind that this is coming from a creator who grew up with Eastern philosophy as his foundation and learned about Christianity. I think you had looked into this, that he
began to question, because he was raised Buddhist, and then he met a monk, and the monk kind of made him, he started to question his own faith and then explore the international other faiths, right?
Right.
I guess similar to you, I guess.
Sure,
but for him, he was Buddhist, and he started to explore
for me, it's
others,
almost the other way
and
around.
you were one of the others, and you're looking into
now
Buddhist
I'm
stuff.
moving into the Eastern and kind of really learning to love the Eastern ideas.
He was like the exact opposite. But... And I don't know. I mean, I don't know that anyone's asked him. I don't know where exactly he's ended up now. But it doesn't seem like he super loves Christianity. But he did like to take a lot of its themes, and play with them.
So that's almost what
which can be offensive. I mean, nobody does that to
that's true.
Islam nowadays.
That's true.
Or you know what I'm saying?
In certain contexts, this exact thing would be painted by a certain group as being appropriating another culture and misrepresenting it, or even if it's unintentional, sort of like using those symbols and those ideas in ways that are offensive to that culture. I could see that being an argument being made, though I didn't feel offended by this at all.
Right. It was just weird.
It
was
felt
just like
silly.
It just tasted funny.
It was funky in on the palate.
Funky on the palate. Absolutely.
It was like, that's all. I'm not sure I
Right.
can stomach that. I'm going to spit that one out.
You know,
So anyway, I want to wrap this all up by saying, yeah, like I could see someone not coming up from that background, wanting to play with the ideas and just trying to create this cool story with these, what would seem like foreign, exotic, cool
To him.
figures, symbols, ideas, and kind of work them into this cool little sci-fi plot. I could see maybe someone from the Western world doing the same thing with like Eastern symbols or ideas, not having grown up in that culture,
Right.
not fully understanding maybe some of the sacredness, or like if I use this symbol in this way, it's going to like totally be weird to those people.
Right.
It's going to feel totally wrong. I don't want to like overstate this. I'm not trying to do that. This did not ruin the game or anything like that. I still, again, will repeat, this is probably among the top 5 best RPGs on the PlayStation 2, in my opinion, if not top 3. I mean, it's really, really high up there. There's just certain moments where I was like, this is crazy, man.
But luckily they follow it up. They're able to, they don't pursue those moments too heavily.
Yes.
Right. Once the silliness is over, they don't keep, exploiting it to the end. Like it really does get back into some more like truly meaningful moments that are less exploitative.
If we're doing a weights and balances here, like the good, really cool, really meaningful stuff definitely outweighs these like brief sort of sections.
And they end on a cool, not...
Yeah.
And it's important
leaves
where
it
you
on
end
a
on.
resolved note, not on a what was that note. So that's how I feel about all the Mary Magdalene Jesus Christ stuff in this game and how chaos was involved and all that.
I just
like
think
that
it's funny.
element of the plot to me, no, I don't know. It just tastes a little strange to my palate that didn't develop in that part of the world. We talked a couple weeks ago about certain dishes. Brazilian dishes that, just one in particular. I like most of the Brazilian food I've had. But the one dish that I had where I was like, that's just a little bit weird for me. I just don't think I like that. But for her who grew up with that dish her whole life, it's amazing. How can you not like this? This is crazy. But then she'll try like certain candies, like American candies. And it's like, that is disgusting. And I'm like, what do you mean?
What?
Like, see,
That's
but your palate develops within a culture.
Yeah.
And I really think there is something to that with this.
I would also want to throw out that it's that the way your palate develops in a culture, it's not a bad thing.
No.
Like if you were raised in a certain culture and then you really did not like this whole Mary Magdalene thing because of the culture you were raised in.
I wouldn't think you're wrong.
That's fine. That's a perfectly valid opinion as well. We can get past our tradition. Wasn't exactly obsessed with Mary Magdalene.
No.
So okay, it's just a name from the Bible that is just used in a weird way here, but it's not like it wasn't necessarily like that in particular. It was getting a little close to that. That was getting close to some of the things where I'm like, look, that just tastes funny the way I was raised, and it's okay to be raised in a way that some things taste funny, Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
What I really want to talk about
we
is
have 20 minutes.
Shion and the whole scene with her and Kevin.
Yeah.
And he shows up and he's like, come with me because it's good. Well, it's good to me now. This is a controversial scene for a lot of people.
Really? Oh, yeah. I like it, though.
Okay, so let's talk about that first. On my initial run, as I announced earlier, I was kind of upset with Shion for this scene. And you were hinting at
my
that.
initial run, I understand her so well.
Okay, talk about that. I'd love to hear about that.
So I've got a few things that I wrote here. So at the very end, this gets Alan, by the way, gosh, another whole person to talk about. He basically becomes the main character of the game, like kind of towards the end, especially when Shion is like, oh, I'm deciding to do something I shouldn't do. And then Alan is the one who steps up and he's just like, oh, and then he's the one getting beat up. Lots of Star Wars references too, by the way, to like when Luke is watching Darth Vader get tortured by the Emperor and kind of wondering what to do about it. And then the hand getting cut off with Wilhelm, and a lot of Star Wars references happening here.
If I'm remembering the scene correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a point in which Jin like accepts this and then it begins to turn his sword on his own sister.
Yeah.
That was like, wow.
It is. That's pretty hard, but well, you were just raised in a culture that values family.
Yeah.
Because it's just another person, why is she different from anyone else? Well, it's true. I agree. But this is Jin's flaw. He is willing to sacrifice his family for the greater good.
Yeah.
And is it a flaw or not? I don't know. But it is, I think it's a flaw. I'm calling it a flaw.
Yeah.
It very well could save the world, right?
I think he even admitted it was a flaw. He talked about this atonement that he needed to make.
Right.
I think that was in direct reference to the fact that he valued his data on his little hard drive more than his sister's life.
You know how I drew the graph for Virgil, where I was like, here he is, and then he falls a little and then redeems himself, and then falls a lot and redeems himself a lot. This is Jin, same thing. Like, he has a microcosm of the real big move, which is, well, before it was just your inaction or your action on something else that led to your parents dying. Now you're really going to do the thing yourself now for your own family. Yeah. Like, you see Takahashi and Xenosaga, they wrote very convincing characters in terms of very consistent characters. I'll put it that way. They're very consistent in that when they have a problem and overcome it, the problem doesn't go away. This is ingrained. It's like the highway path of their brain that we keep going back to. This is who Jin is. And he has probably thought this through many times. He has made this decision in the past. He's going to make it again because this is part of who he is. He is willing to do this because he feels that the greater good is more important. He's read all the books and he tries to not live a life interacting with machines, but with people and paper books. And he's different in a lot of ways. And that, he tries to preserve books. He probably feels like it's worth some people dying to preserve books, right?
Sure.
But that's an important thing to do. Even if it's just a passive thing, not that he would kill anyone. But here we finally see him, he's about to kill someone. And that's just crazy. But it's, once again, we see another character where they give us a hint of who they are, and then they show us who the people really are. And then those people hate themselves for it. But can you really blame them or even say that they were wrong? Would Jean have been wrong to kill her if she did go with Kevin? No, but also yes, a lot. But also, if it saves the world,
if he's stopping Wilhelm and the Testaments from
right. So, anyways, very fascinating scene there. But Alan is being tortured like crazy at this point, and Alan still can't confess that he loves her. He does later, but at this point he's like, because she's cool,
This is such a great moment for Alan.
I love Alan at the end of this game.
This is such a great moment
for Alan.
What
a beast. That's what I'm saying. He basically becomes the main character of the game at the end here.
Realizes his will to power here because he's resisting two groups.
Right.
He's resisting Kevin, who is his direct rival in love.
Yes, totally.
And who he has absolutely no ability to fight.
Nope, yeah.
Not a single chance that he could do any damage to him if he tried.
Yeah.
He's going to try it anyways because that's his will to power.
Exactly.
But he's also resisting his friends who are just like accepting that Shion is doing this and are now turning their weapons on her.
And it's
like,
not...
what is wrong with you guys?
It's Rubito.
Stop it.
Rubito's like, I'm going to kill her too.
What are you doing?
Yeah, that was good.
And he has his like moment to shine and like put everyone back in their place.
Totally.
And this is so beautiful because he was ignored, forgotten the whole time.
Yeah. Underestimated, undervalued.
Really, really good.
Absolutely. He if he viewed himself poorly, he would have actually been correct. But he redeems himself, right? He has that moment, that big upswing, right? He's had little moments where he's kind of, I'm going to be strong and help now, but it's smaller, right? We're finally seeing like a big scale move.
There was that moment where Shion was going to go out into Milsha no matter what.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, don't do that. We can't change the past. But then at the end, he's like, all right, I'm coming with you. Like,
and I'm going to protect
someone's
you.
going to watch over you.
Exactly.
And I think he said something like, I don't know if it was Jin or someone can't be, or Cosmos can't be here to
right.
do it, so I'm going to do it.
Right.
Right.
That
There's
was awesome.
those small steps
Yes.
up to this moment.
So it's really good. And what I'm kind of, making a point of is that for all the characters, we have seen these small movements that are hinting at these big movements that are going to come later, that where the stakes are highest, right? So, but for Shion at the end, when she is kind of maybe starting to get a little closer to Alan, when, like, I'm talking very end of the game here, when Shion has finally decided, like, I am valuable and the people around me do care about me, and I maybe can start making an effort now that I haven't been doing, is when I wrote this note down here. Shion is someone who failed in all of her relationships. She failed in all of them, right? Like, she did not have people stuck with her because she's important and people could tell. And maybe through other influences, it was like, these people have to stay together. But I don't know, like, she never was reciprocal to any of these people in the way that maybe she ought to have been. But the reason why I kind of like relate to her in this way is because she always wanted to be better. She just couldn't do it. It's actually kind of what you mentioned, that like if you're going home for Thanksgiving, you got it in your mind. Like, I want to just get along with everyone and say the right things and be awesome and just talk a lot and be active. And then you get there and you just can't do it. I have similar tendencies myself. And I don't know exactly why, but like you actually mentioned, like sometimes that you feel like other people are maybe coming to you a little bit more defensive because they feel like you'll be mad at them or something. I know that there was one time where I came to you with something similar to that I had sat on for like 9 years. It was actually very recently. It was just like a year or two ago. And I was like, dude.
Oh, I remember. Do
you remember this?
Yeah,
it was that
That.
conversation. I was like, look, man, I just felt, and it was one of those things where someone asked me a question about you and I gave my personal opinion on it. And then it turns out I was kind of just putting words in your mouth or maybe exaggerating maybe how you really felt. And then of course it made it back to you. And then it made me feel bad because I was like, oh, I don't want Mike to think that I think that this about him, it's just that at the time that I just was kind of saying how I felt. And then I felt dumb. I shouldn't speak for people like that. I shouldn't do that. And so, but then I sat on it for like 9 years later. And then I was like, hey, by the way, I feel really bad. I hope you weren't offended. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. And you were like, no, it's all good, man. It's fine. Right. But I sometimes will hold on to things for 9 years or longer. And sometimes I have these tendencies where I will not do what I know I need to do in order to keep up relationships. I'm horrible at maintaining relationships and friendships. So bad. I don't even get on Facebook anymore. I don't wish anyone a happy birthday in the world unless they are very, very close to me.
And like literally living in your house.
Basically, you have to be living with me to get a happy birthday text from me. It's a horrible weakness of mine. I am bad at this, but I want to be better. And I sense with Shion that she has failed at all of her relationships and she knows it, but she does have a desire to be better, right? And so she just can't bring herself to do the things that she knows she needs to do, right? So I say I'm not as bad as her, but I have a hard time keeping relationships, connecting with people. But there's a part of me that wants to connect with other people so much I just can't. And I retreat a lot. And this is why I understand her so well. And it's not just that that's the easy thing to do. It's that in a world where it's difficult to know what the truth is and what the right thing is to do anyways, to be in a position where Kevin is like, please come back to me and we can save the world together. I am not going to be like, I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to, even if it's like, oh, but you're like, oh, I have other friends too. Okay, fine. But this is like, oh, who's to say that you're right over this person? In fact, at the very end, that's basically what Shion says at the very end. I think this would be chapter 10 stuff, where she says, she's talking about Wilhelm and she's saying like, he wasn't even wrong or evil in what he was trying to do. He just went about it in maybe a poor way. I don't know if I wrote the note down here.
Exactly.
I wish I did.
We can pull it up in the script if we want.
So she's talking about Wilhelm and saying that like, I don't even disagree with him. I don't even disagree with Wilhelm. And it's like, holy crap. You so easily could have just gone with the Red Testament and then gone with Wilhelm. And so what? The whole thing happens again.
Yeah. Eternal
so
occurrence.
What? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that just really, really identifies with her, like, pretty heavily. And I feel like not even that she necessarily, that it would have been the right thing to do, but that I can so understand the desire to do that, and not just in the I'm taking the easy way out thing, but in like a legitimate, like I'm following my heart. This is what my soul tells me to do. I can so identify with that.
Yeah.
And then of course, it turns out, although she does have another line at the end, which is like, even if things are predetermined, there's still a myriad of futures to choose from. And I'm like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense at all. But whatever. That's what, maybe somebody else can explain that to me. Please do. But there you go. I mean, that's more or less where I'm at.
I love that. And my turnaround on this scene was actually really surprising in a very like self-reflective, honest way about my own failings.
Yeah.
And that being the reason why I was so angry at her. So I'm not going to like speak for anybody else as to why they were put off by Shion in the scene. I think on the surface level, it could be very easy to be like,
yeah,
how selfish of you.
Because obviously it's not the right thing to do.
It is
sure,
selfish.
Yeah.
She's being selfish.
Right.
However,
However,
we've already been over all of the stuff about Shion. I don't want to repeat too much of what I said last time. So if you haven't seen that, you probably go watch the end of the last episode where I talk about that more. But I talked about the difference between real love and then the love they sort of portray in the media, and how that gets used by young people, and they're influenced in their poor self-esteem to prop up a relationship of this kind as a means of validating themselves.
Sure, yeah.
And so then if that person starts to, their feelings change, or maybe you just have some irreconcilable differences and they have a different path they want to walk in life to you, it is never viewed as if, oh, this is just, this person has some different ideas about the kind of life they want to make. And that's hard, but that's the reason. And instead you make it all about you.
Sure.
It's because I'm not good enough. It's because I'm not handsome or pretty enough. It's because there's something wrong with me.
Right.
You're making it all about you. And when that person, and you're sort of imprisoning that person in that sense, to where they can never choose not to be with you, because that would mean they're confirming that you are this grotesque creature undeserving of love.
Right.
Right? You're putting them now in a position where you make them feel trapped. And so you're almost manipulating them that way.
Yeah,
this
totally.
happens
Actually, yes.
a lot as well.
Yeah, totally.
So I was impressed by Alan, particularly going through this, because Alan actually loves Shion.
Right, yeah.
And I say that because he stands in the face of Kevin, his direct rival, who's more handsome, smarter, more powerful, and who she's infatuated with.
Right.
And is not jealous.
Right.
He does not allow a certain kind of jealousy to develop where he then starts taking that out on her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like sometimes when a person gets jealous, they then like, it's really, it's all, again, like a reflection of the self. They're feeling like a low self-esteem. They're feeling like they're not good enough, all this personal insecurity. And so they then start lashing out at this person,
Totally,
right? He never does that to her. And
right.
I was really impressed by that, because I feel like a lot of people who might identify with a character like Alan, who they're like this virgin dude who like never had a girlfriend before and doesn't know how to talk to girls. And he's like, I don't love this term, but he's kind of like an incel, right?
Right.
Kind of like this nerdy loser kind of guy who people don't pay attention to.
Well, he's been in love with the same girl for 5 years and she still doesn't even know because
he is
he's
the prime
quiet.
example of the type of person who would have that kind of insecurity and would therefore develop that kind of almost like violent jealousy.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he doesn't. Yeah. Like, despite all of Alan's I don't know, like lack of prowess or like confidence, he at least has the self-confidence to not allow like Shion's choices to become reflections on himself, right? He doesn't take her decision to go with him to mean, oh, she's confirming what a loser I am.
Right. Right.
He's saying, no, hold on a second. Something's wrong with the chief here. This is not really love. He's manipulating her. He's going to hurt her.
Right.
Like, he doesn't make it about himself.
Right.
In a way that I think would be so easy to do. And so he just makes it about revenge on Kevin. No, everything he does here is for Shion's benefit because he actually understands this woman.
Right.
And he expresses that. Kevin, you don't even know who she is.
Right, and the pain she's
been through. You don't
through.
know the pain she's been through.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I get it. I hurt for her. And I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to let that happen. Right. Not because I'm jealous of you, but because I actually care about this person. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was
right.
Good.
And this wakes Shion up. And I feel like it makes her realize she's not really in love with Kevin in the sense of love that I've been trying to describe here.
Right.
She has made that relationship with him an act of propping herself up and validating herself. That's not real love. That's more of an infatuation, more of a self-validating practice. He makes me feel good. I felt nothing but pain in my home and everywhere else. And so, like, he provides me these good feelings, and I'm using him to make me feel good. That's not love, right?
Right.
So Alan's true expression of love wakes her up and realize, I can't do this. I can't go with Kevin. This is wrong. Right. So it's beautiful. I've totally done a 180 on the scene.
It wasn't even Shion's decision. It was actually Alan who changed the course of events.
Yes. I loved that.
He became the pivotal character that I did not know. He was just hiding in the background the whole game. And then all of a sudden at the end, he comes up and all he does is allow himself. He's like, hey, you do what you want, but like literally over my dead body. So like kill me, right? Just literally just kill me right now. And Kevin's like, okay, I'll kill you. And that's what more or less, that's what wakes Shion up. When
Shion's like, okay, no, I can't let you kill Kevin.
Yeah, don't kill. What? Or,
there was a very specific moment.
What's his name? Not Kevin. What's his name?
Alan?
The kid. Alan. Yeah.
Don't kill Alan. Don't kill Alan. But no, I think part of the reason why on my initial playthrough I was mad at Shion was specifically because of my own insecurities, how I would have felt if I were Alan.
Right.
Right? I was kind of like, I could kind of relate to Alan in a sense there.
Right.
To where I felt kind of like a loser up to a certain stage of life. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was pretty old. And, you know, I had a lot of rejection before that. And so, and actually after that, I had quite a lot of rejection. So I felt like I was understanding what Alan might be feeling there, but that was the whole irony of the situation. Alan wasn't feeling what I was projecting onto Alan to feel.
Right. Yeah.
I was projecting the incel energy onto Alan and getting mad and jealous on his behalf.
Yeah.
But that's not what he was feeling there. And so that kind of like came back to bite me in like self-reflection. It was like that, like, no, your mindset about what Alan should feel there was totally messed up. And so I learned something from Alan there. It's very good. It's pretty cool. Pretty good moment. So I've done a 180 on the scene.
And the other thing that I also want people listening to just think about is to be forgiving about people like Shion.
Yeah.
I can so easily think of situations where I would do exactly what she did. And it's not even hard for me to do, to the point where I'm just like, hey guys, Takahashi wrote a very human person here.
Yeah.
And give him props. Don't hate on him for that.
Yeah.
Right. I think he did a great job there. And to the extent that you know people like Shion in your life, offer them a hand or something, because you can help them out, but you also could so easily be that person. And how would you want others to act if you had a moment of weakness like that, which probably you have like every week or all the time.
Yeah.
How do you want other people to treat you when you're, being stupid?
At your worst
yeah.
or whatever.
And like,
You need to find an Alan, is what you're saying.
oh, wow, a simp. Well,
Everyone needs a simp, but like
You do.
not an incel
You do.
energy simp. You need a simp that actually loves you for who you are.
yeah, I don't know how easy those are to find, but
Yeah.
something like that, or just be the kind of person that is understanding towards somebody going through that or behaving like that, because man, it's not hard at all to imagine why Shion did that.
So there are two ways.
I almost think Takahashi didn't go far enough.
There are two ways we can go to wrap up this. We can either go talk about the ending and the great moment where Jin and Shion kind of like have their last moment together.
Let's save that for the next one.
Or we can talk about the Animus real quick,
Okay.
which I wanted to do because it really ties into this.
Oh, dude, we only have like 3 minutes.
Okay. How do I do this?
I don't know.
Really, really fast. I talk about this in depth in the Princess Mononoke podcast that we recorded. That is, for now, exclusive to Patreon.
You know what? I think I've been assuming people have already heard that episode.
Yes.
Jeez.
But the thing is we should be talking about Animus here.
Yes, absolutely.
Animus development. I went to really in depth into this, my thoughts on this. And if you want to hear the full thing, you'll have to, if you want to see it now, I would humbly ask that you sign up for Patreon and go watch it. It will eventually become public in a few months.
Possibly.
Well, we got to release Dune in between, because we got to do another Lord of the Rings episode, and then both the Dune films, and then Princess Mononoke will become public after that. So it'll be a while before it goes public. But I talked in depth about Animus development there. And this ties in very much into this discussion about Alan. So maybe I'll just set that as a teaser, because there's not a lot of time to go into. Maybe we'll talk about it in our final episode. Just
I think
don't let me forget to talk about Animus development.
I'll put it down as my note.
And Alan, and how it pertains to Alan, and the fact that Alan is much higher than Tarzan level in his Animus development, which is why he was able to do what he did in the scene.
Absolutely.
And we can actually have an Animus discussion in a Xeno game, which is what we should have done a long time ago.
Gosh, dude.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will cover the last few bits of the ending and stuff here, and then we'll get into a panel discussion. And please, like I said before, send us specific things. You guys didn't touch on this. I thought it would be cool to get your opinion on it. Can you please talk about this? Send that to me. I will gather those together. We'll try to go over those with the panel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.